The performing at the same time of day, the same type of tasks, is as important as sleep duration and sleep quality. Meaning we take advantage of this with athletes all the time. You can predict winning percentage of NFL games, NBA games, NHL games, and Major League Baseball games, the big four in America, over a 30-year span, can be predicted by simply looking at who performed not in their time zone, but who performed in the time that was their normal circadian time. What I mean by that is, let's say you had a West Coast team. Whether they traveled to the East Coast or not doesn't matter, but if they played on the East Coast at the same time of day that they normally play on the West Coast, it doesn't matter that they got on a plane for 3 hours. They performed at the same time of day that they normally did. They have a competitive advantage somewhere between 2 to 4%, depending on the study, maybe a little higher, over the team that is playing at home in their same building if they're playing at a different time than they normally play. So I'll give you like one example. We worked with the University of Washington football team this year on their sleep. And so if they play a normal West Coast game at 1 o'clock, in normal West Coast football time, 1 p.m., and then we had to go to the East Coast, which we didn't have to too often, but next year we're going to start having to go there, right? And we got there and we played a game in Ohio, but we played it at 4 o'clock Ohio time, which is still 1 o'clock our time. Then we don't have any concerns with jet lag or travel. But in fact, in that case, the Ohio team, who typically plays at a different time, is having to compete way earlier or way later, then they're actually at a circadian disadvantage because we're playing at the same local circadian time. So it's not the time change that gets people. We do the same thing, by the way, with our executive and professional clients, especially in negotiations. If you're doing like a team meeting and you have to think, well, that's great. But if you're going to like actually have to battle somebody, like negotiation or make a really hard decision, I want you making that decision on your local schedule, and I want your opponent off schedule. Don't tell anybody I said that, but you'll have an advantage. So you get the East Coast person to have a 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. West Coast meeting. That's 8 or 9 o'clock their time. Their cognitive performance is going to be lower than yours, or the inverse. So we make sure we give our people advantages.
I was thinking about the gym because the time that I go to the gym fluctuates wildly. Sometimes I go in the morning, and I'm going to be honest because it's what I have to do. Sometimes I go at midnight.
Terrible idea.
I know you're going to say that.
Yeah. We actually we encounter this a number of times where we see sleep issues, we see energy issues, we see struggling to lose body fat issues, things like that. And they come in and they think they want this like secret recipe of supplements and blood markers, and they want all this stuff. And I'm like, we do it. And I'm like, yo, you got to stop training at night. And we start looking at things like their respiratory rate, their HRV, other markers of sleep quality. And it can be as simple as the fact that you are doing too much high intensity stuff in the evening. That has a carryover. That carryover can be a couple of hours for some people. It could be 6 hours for other people. And so if you are doing a training session at 10 p.m., you better expect not to sleep very well. That's going to happen. Now, some people are a little bit more resilient to that, and others, it's really, really, really damaging. And so we have to pull people off of exercise a lot at that time, or at minimum go, hey, yo, for you, if you're going to train at night, it needs to be restorative training. Short duration, get a little sweat going. Don't get your heart rate up too high. Don't do anything too neurologically fatiguing, and then get out of there. We got to do our harder work in the morning. It's not always the case, but it's more often than not that we have to peel people back. That said, again, I work with professional athletes. We play Major League Baseball games at 7 o'clock. We're not done till 10 or 11. Whether it's like, hey, they literally can't control it, that's their job, or schedule-wise or whatever, you can work around it. The world is not perfect, but in an ideal scenario, you really want to pay attention to that because that can seriously affect